the Carson City Audit Committee meeting to order. Can we have a roll call, please?
Chair Schutte,
Here.
Vice Chair Lambin, Member Duke,
Here.
Member Scalia, Member Stack.
Here.
A quorum is present.
Thank you. We will now go to public comment. The public is invited at this time to comment on and discuss any topic that is relevant to or within the authority of this public body. Is there anyone who would like to make public comment? Okay. Then we go to number 4 for possible action, approval of minutes. Has everyone had a chance to read the minutes? Were there any corrections? Okay, do we have a motion?
I move to approve the minutes of January 9th, 2024.
There a second?
I'll second.
All right, all in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, the minutes are approved. We now go to agenda item 5A for possible action, discussion and possible action regarding a report prepared by the Carson City Internal Auditor, Eid Bailey, LLP, for the fiscal year 2024 audit work program concerning the city's cash handling process, including findings and recommendations. Sherry Russell Benaboo, it's all yours.
Good morning. Thank you. So I am going to turn it over to Audrey, our manager, our audit manager, to go through the report and the findings with you. And then there's staff here if you have any questions.
Excellent. Thank you, Sherry. Thank you, audit committee members.
Hello.
And we do have can you hear me okay?
Yes, thank you.
Okay, great. We do have the presentation that was provided in advance material. Sorry, that was late. And I'd like to share my screen at this time, if that's okay.
Absolutely.
Excellent. All right, that was just a number of clicks. Hopefully you guys can see the Eid Bailey internal audit screen, and we will take it right into the cash handling internal audit.
We're not seeing it yet.
You're not, okay. You're sharing your application window. Let me stop sharing and start again.
And Audrey, if you can't get it to work, I did hand out a color copy of your presentation. So I think.
Okay, perfect.
Yeah.
Thank you. I don't know if you can see that now. If not, then I won't worry about it.
No, we can't see it, but so you can just go ahead and we'll follow our packet. Thank you.
All right, thank you. All right. Yeah, so thank you guys for this time and opportunity to brief you on the cash handling process review. And at this time, there's a number of people that we'd really like to thank and express our gratitude for those that were involved in conducting this engagement. And first one would be the treasurer, second would be the deputy treasurer, public guardian, and of course, Sherry. We wouldn't have this engagement or this report available to you for your review and approval without their support. So let me start with why we performed this engagement. This engagement came about in our FY23 risk assessment report, and grant management was identified at that time as a risk area. As such, it was approved by the audit committee as an internal audit project. The objective of our cash handling process review was to determine whether risks related to cash handling are being managed appropriately, that internal controls are in place to reduce the risk of misappropriation, and cash receipts are promptly, accurately, completely reported. Internal controls include safeguards around assets, segregation of duties, accountability, reconciliations, and monitoring. The scope of our engagement was January 2023 through December 2023. That's when we concluded the engagement and delivered the draft report. So let me go over a little bit about our approach for this engagement that really involved a number of activities. The first of which included interviewing. We interviewed a lot of key personnel involved in the cash handling process, really to gain that insight into the day-to-day cash handling activities. We reviewed the Treasurer's Office results on their surprise cash handling audits for calendar years 2022 and 2023. And we reviewed the cash handling process of the Public Guardian's Office as they were not included in the Treasurer's Office surprise audits. Throughout our approach, we did identify areas of both strengths and areas that require improvement. And Kathy is here now to walk us through those strengths and areas of improvement. Kathy?
Thank you, Audrey. Can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Yes.
All right, thanks, Audrey. So our review indicated that cash handling risks are effectively managed by the city. There are appropriate internal controls in place to mitigate misappropriation of assets. We identified 2 findings with accompanying recommendations to strengthen the internal controls for the cash handling process. By addressing these issues and associated risks, the provided recommendations should positively affect the overall efficiency and effectiveness of the cash handling process. It is also important to note that management agrees with these recommendations and they provided detailed responses to address the identified risks. So the first of the 2 audit findings relates to repeat findings in the Treasurer's Office surprise cash audits. We reviewed the results of the surprise cash audits from 2022 and 2023 and identified 9 issues from 6 different departments that remained unresolved when the 2023 surprise cash audit was performed. Based on this finding, we recommended that the Treasurer's Office establish a clear timeline for implementing corrective actions when the finding is identified. The Treasurer has been proactively working with the different departments with findings, and as of the time of the report, 5 out of the 9 issues have been remediated, 1 with corrective action to be implemented in April, and 2 with corrective action to be implemented in June. Moving on to finding number 2, which relates to the Public Guardian's Office policies and procedures. We perform a high-level review of the cash handling processes within the Public Guardian's Office. Although they have existing policies and procedures, they are outdated and have not undergone recent updates. Specifically, we noted a lack of clear guidelines for the custody of guardianship checks, for reconciling the pooled guardianship accounts, and for managing the able or achieve a better life experience accounts. To address this, we recommended that these areas be prioritized and included in the Public Guardian's initiative to develop and update new policies and procedures for the office. This approach will improve transparency and efficiency in the cash handling process within the Public Guardian's Office. As mentioned before, management agrees with the recommendations and has provided detailed responses to each one, effectively addressing the risks identified. So that concludes our presentation on cash handling, and I will now turn it over to the Audit Committee for any questions.
Thank you. Does anyone have any questions or comments?
I have one. When I was going over this, I noticed several times it was, staff gets 90 days to learn, new staff gets 90 days to learn the new policy. And in my background, that's probably a little too much time. If a person's part of their job they're hired for is to handle instruments of deposit, they should really, it's not rocket science. It's really not as complicated as it sounds. You can write something and it's like, but in the reality, I just think 90 days is still kind of keeping it at a high risk. That even, I made a note here of 30, and probably 30 is even too much, but 90 just seems really kind of an excessive amount of time.
Good afternoon, Andrew Razor for Carson City Treasurer's Office for the record. I would agree with you. I would say that that probably is too much time as far as 90 days. I would have to probably look with the staff to see what would be a comparable range. One of the things that we do find is you do get employees that are coming in. Some of them might be part-time or have other duties, and that may not be their only deal. But yeah, the cash handling policy, as lengthy as it is and as much as we've expanded, I know it is kind of a dry material, but it should be something that they should review because they are working with the cash and knowing the different cash handling policies and procedures would be more effective if they are more familiar with the policy is. And one of the things that we try to do with the surprise cash audits is also use that as a training opportunity to explain to them why we have this policy, especially the new procedures that we enacted, and to explain it and give them better insight so that even if they might have missed something or maybe something didn't stick as far as the policy, they now have a better understanding of it.
One other, when I was looking at the thing for public authority, again, with the deposit, I'm a retired governmental accountant, so, it kind of said, deposits done within 5 days, depending on staff. I really think, this is my own personal spin, and again, the risk, there should be probably more than 1 or 2 people trained how to do this, because you never know when you got we had instances of somebody on vacations and then someone and had emergency surgery and someone had an auto accident, like all within like 3 days. So again, kind of not depositing. I would think the public guardian gets enough instruments of deposit into where it probably should be done more than once a week. I mean, you deposit it, you can post from posting sheets, but I don't know, I would just think the sizable checks, especially with Social Security and that kind of thing coming in, they have kind of sizable amount of instruments of deposit sitting around if they only wait once a week.
Now, is this just for the public guardian's office that you're
Yeah, I was
referencing?
reading that thing on page 13, and I'm like, so, and I don't know, maybe they do it more, and this is just written in a way that doesn't really explain it.
Yeah, I don't know all the processes involved with the public guardian's office. I do know that they do have
Luckily, she's here.
NRS and other guidelines that they have to follow that
Right.
might make it more a little
Absolutely.
problematic.
There's state and fed and all that fun stuff.
Make sure you can hear me. Okay, perfect. So
Can you give your name for the record?
sure,
please?
this is Sandra Downey, and I'm the public guardian. So I wrote that in mind with consideration to current staffing issues that we have. At this time, there's only myself to do deposits. And so that 5-day window was just to allow some flexibility because our job is probably pretty consistently dealing with individuals' needs. And at times those can be crisis-related, hospitalizations, et cetera. But certainly, like even now, I do make deposits that reflect when I receive a check, so within a day or two. But I did write that to kind of put into consideration what our current staffing, limited staffing resources are. We are currently, we just hired an accounting clerk to fill the position that had been vacant for a few months. And so ideally that person, that would be a central focus of their responsibilities. And I think you would see checks being deposited same day or next day. We do get checks, I would say infrequently. Certainly when we first get a case assigned to us and we're doing the transition of applying to be their rep payee, and then Social Security will send a hard copy check, and then we take that to establish a guardianship account. But checks typically are infrequently received. They're not a constant across the board for most of our clients.
So just to kind of wrap this up, would you be willing to change the policy to 30 days?
Yes.
Okay, and then Sandra, would you be willing to change the policy to like 2 days? And then obviously if you're short-staffed, you would be outside of that policy, but there's a reason.
Yes.
Okay, perfect, thank you. Yeah,
Correct.
that's what I thought, yeah.
Correct.
Thank you.
Well, I just want to commend Mr. Reiser. It's just, your report was incredible in terms of the detail that you went in and really addressed everything so specifically, even to the point of the exact minute when you met with different people and to address the issues. And so thank you very much. And welcome to Public Guardian, being the Public Guardian.
Appreciate it.
And we appreciate your efforts in terms of devising that updated policy. It is difficult, especially when you are by yourself and filling the spots. And so please absolutely reach out if you need help. So, but
Thank
we
you.
appreciate you both. So thank you. Are there any other questions or concerns? Okay. Thank you.
Do you have a motion to accept
Oh.
the report?
Is there a
Sorry.
motion to accept the report as, with the corrections as discussed on the record?
Yes.
I so move.
Second.
Right, all in favor?
Aye.
Perfect.
Unanimous.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you guys for being here.
Okay, and then our next item 5B for possible action, discussion and possible action regarding the monitoring, review, and closure of internal audit findings and/or recommendations included in the audit findings tracking report and providing a recommendation to the Board of Supervisors to close completed findings and/or recommendations. Sherry.
Thank you very much. So with this report, I only have 2 recommendations for you today, so I'm going to skip a lot because they're not due yet to be completed. So I'm going to go all the way to the utility billing internal audit. Finding number 8. So on this finding, we had already discussed the potential of closing this finding. However, the Board of Supervisors wanted one more chance for the public to choose between paper statements or electronic statements. And so we sent out information in the March billing, and that cycle is complete. But we sent out information on how to do that, basically, how to get online and choose either one statement or the other. So that has been completed, and so I'm going to recommend closure again. So I guess with this one, it's like reaffirming your prior closure. And then the last one I wanted to talk about was the clerk's office, item number 4. This one has a due date of 1/31/2024, and this was the landmark system and restricting the access to authorized personnel only. That has been done. There's been a, I believe, 90-day window for passwords, and the next time it's changing is April 1st. So it's been set for a while. It's operating as it was supposed to.
I just had a question on that where it says actual completion date. Is it because it's a continuous process every 90 days or?
No, I probably forgot to put that in there.
Okay.
I'm gonna put, was it like done January 1st? Yeah, okay.
And actually on the same with the other, on number 8 that we just talked about on page
Oh,
30.
I'm sorry, it's budget season, I'm
That's
sorry.
okay.
Thank you.
You're welcome, you're welcome. Are there any questions or concerns on these 2 items? No? All right, then do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion. I move to recommend to the Board of Supervisors closing the items discussed based on the correction of findings and recommendations included in the audit findings tracking report.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Anyone opposed? All right,
And just for confirmation, that was just item number 8 and number 4.
correct. Number 8 and number 4. Thank you.
Okay. And I did include the new cash study in there for your, we'll talk about it next time, but I did include a sheet with all the cash stuff on there.
Okay, then we're on to 5C for discussion only, discussion regarding the draft annual risk assessment and internal audit plan for fiscal year 2025. There you go, Sherry.
All righty, thank you very much. So I'm again going to turn this over to our auditors, Audrey Donovan.
Thank you, Sherry. And as the staff report reads there, audit committee members, this is really an open discussion. I just want to give you a brief update where we're at with the risk assessment, and the items that are in your advanced material packet are the areas that we've identified of risk and concern at this time. We are currently wrapping up the risk assessment process. We've gone through interviewing all the department heads for the city that are applicable. We've extended our what am I trying to say, our interviews to include the mayor, the city manager, various department heads, including Sherry, and we've also reached out to our subject matter experts as it relates to government risk, not just within the state of Nevada, but just as a whole for that landscape, and identifying what might be in the landscape of Carson City's risk. We have also researched your board meeting minutes, Board of Supervisors minutes, pulled in financial statements, strategic plan review, and then just looking at various departments, mission, vision, goals, and assessing risks from different areas. So with that said, these are the areas that you see that we've identified as being the risk topics that we are proposing for the next fiscal year, FY24-25. And you can see here the proposed internal audit as well as the risk. And I'll go ahead and walk through these and then open it up for discussion. And what we're really looking to do is include audit committee in that discussion of risk, and risk being risk of resources, whether that's people or money, risk to operations, safety, security, financial risks. The risks are really endless. Really just want to have a discussion with you all about where you perceive there may be risks citywide, anything specific that may be grabbing at you that you'd like to discuss. So with that said, I'll go ahead and move into this slide, and we'll start with human resource workforce management assessment. This has been identified as an area to assess based on risk related to staffing shortages and the talent gaps due to an inability to attract and retain employees. And we're seeing this in a number of areas, which I think you'll start to hear throughout this slide. But additionally, there has been a decrease in employee morale and general employee dissatisfaction, and that comes through on the annual employee survey. Currently, the city within Sherry's group, accounting, is conducting a cost study, more for on the employee compensation.
Yeah, comp
and Sherry
study.
can talk to
Compensation
study. Thank
study,
you. That is moving. This actually is a positive movement in the right direction in accordance with the risks that we've identified. We also understand that the HR director is new in his role with the city, and actually believe that an engagement in this area could benefit and be helpful for that new director. As such, we've included a review of the HR workforce management to ensure that the HR recruitment, onboarding, employee performance evaluation, and training across the entire organization to ensure integration with organizational objectives. Additionally, it's to assess the city's workforce planning compliance efforts, and internal control structure. The next topic is purchasing and contracts management, which we have noted the last internal audit in this area was performed in 2014. The procurement process does have inherent operational risks that could result in inefficiencies, non-compliance, and reputational damage to the city. As such, we propose an evaluation of the internal controls to ensure departments adhere to, sorry, I'm trying to get back on there, adhere to city policies and applicable state statutes related to contracting with vendors. Additionally, to evaluate the effectiveness of contract management by assessing the appropriateness of awarding, approving, executing, and managing contracts in accordance with policies and procedures. Lastly, to ensure adequate controls are in place to ensure vendors' performance is in accordance with statement of work and invoice payments have been properly processed. Next is the payroll processing engagement, which was last performed in 2021 with 3 findings that have been remediated. Payroll also has a new payroll manager and a new payroll staff member. Additionally, this is an area that has inherent risks such as processing errors, unauthorized time or access, and the potential for fraudulent activities that could result in overpayment of employees. As a result, we have included this engagement to address the accuracy and completeness of payroll inputs and to assess the effectiveness of internal controls in place to prevent errors, fraud, and unauthorized access. Lastly is the public guardian. This topic was identified from a multitude of risks, including the last engagement where the public guardian is not included in the treasurer's cash audit. The last audit that was conducted in this area was in 2017 and had over a dozen findings in asset management. And lastly, the public guardian is new along with new staff. As a result, we propose this engagement to focus on the controls and procedures in place to protect the assets of wards under the guardianship from loss, misuse, or unauthorized transactions. Those are the topics that we've identified so far, and I'd like to open it up to the audit committee to discuss any areas of concern or risk that you feel need to be included in the risk assessment process, and ultimately to discuss any of these 4 areas that you feel need to be included in the FY 24-25 proposed internal audits.
Thank you so much. Would anyone like to start? Member Duke?
Sure, I'll start. I don't have any additional items, but I do concur with the 4 that are on here. And I'm especially glad to see an increase in the budget because that's been an issue for a long time. Do you think that will continue?
We're trying to increase the budget again, but it's still 110,000. We have not gotten that through the Board of Supervisors yet.
So you don't actually have the extra
No,
30,000, but you've requested it.
and I'm
right?
not sure it's going to go through.
Okay.
Because of the comp study, we have limited funding, and so I believe that's one of the things that is not being recommended to be funded.
Okay. And so with the current budget, do you think you can do all 4 of these? Or when we meet again and talk about this with dollars attached to it,
Yeah.
we'll have to pare this down probably at that time.
Potentially, we'll have to see what the budget is. This is kind of a brainstorming session to figure out what your
Right.
concerns are. So they can get a good list, and then we'll nail down the budget next
Okay.
meeting.
So I don't have any additional items, but thank you.
You support the recommendations?
Yes.
Can I make a quick statement? I don't want it to seem like we're picking on the new directors because that's absolutely not what. Exactly, it is a little bit of a risk, but it's not picking on the directors. The internal audit is supposed to be a helpful auditor. They're supposed to catch things before they become a finding with the external auditors. So it's more to help the new director, work out any bugs that are in the current system.
Thank you.
I'm looking at the human resource one, and honestly, I feel for you. Every government agency is going through this. We had, the county I worked for, right before I retired, had the reputation of people came and got their feet wet and learned systems from us, and then went to cities and stuff that paid better. So I'm really not sure. Yeah, it's a problem, it's a risk. I'm not sure what the solution for you would be, because there's only so much money, so much for salaries, so much for benefits, and everybody gets eaten up or swallowed up by somebody else, because they do. The younger people are looking for the best bang for their buck,
Sure.
loyalty. So I just, good luck on that one for you.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Well, I have a question regarding that. So in an audit with human resources, if we're looking at the risk related to staffing shortages and possible ways to attract and maintain employees, could an audit benefit that process?
Yes, let me go ahead and address that
Thank
one. Thank you. It's yes, the city has seen quite a bit of turnover. There has been loss of subject matter expertise needed in different departments, and looking at the risk of the staff shortages and possible ways to attract and retain employees would be part of this engagement in different facets of what is currently in place or may not be in place, which we would start to recognize in the planning process of the engagement and be able to speak with different departments about, really it's the relationship between the various departments and HR. The relationship meaning, is HR and the departments communicating as to potential staff shortages, potential retirees that are going to be happening within the next year to 5 years? Recognizing which departments have the subject matter expertise that's needed that may take a little bit longer to recruit for, and also looking at maybe having service level agreements between the departments on assessing, like a risk assessment, individual employees from a low, medium, and high risk of recruiting. There may be some employees that it's plug and play, and attracting individuals are easier for certain roles and responsibilities versus more of those subject matter expertise. So looking at ways in which HR or even the departments are working to help HR with those staff shortages, getting ahead of it, and then recruiting. It's how is HR recruiting for those harder to recruit positions through their website, through external sites, and then ways of retaining employees. It's really looking at what does HR have in place and the departments as well. So it sounds like a really big engagement. It's a lot about what is already in place and what we can recommend to help improve what may not be there.
Thank you.
Yeah, like Audrey and I talked about this before this meeting, and I mean, we can't wave a magic wand. I don't have a money tree out back, those people that are upset about pay, I mean, I'm hoping that most of them will stick around and see what happens with the comp study. But if they're still not happy, luckily, I mean, we're likely gonna lose them. But there may be some other benefits out there that we can offer that would help attract them that we're not thinking of. There might be some other options.
That's what I'm thinking as well. I see this potentially as an opportunity to be able to really look at the whole picture in terms of employee retention and employee, getting folks on board who are qualified and then keeping the wonderful staff that we have. And it is difficult, working for a city when you're public facing, it creates other difficulties. And so, all right, I appreciate that. I am also comfortable with all four recommendations. The discussion about procurement and looking at the internal controls, especially again when we're talking about, everything is so much more expensive now, and we really want to make sure that what we are doing, we're doing it correctly and efficiently. So I support all four recommendations, and I also appreciate what you said, Sherry, about, and I think of this when I was a teacher and the whole process of the evaluations, and and I know that an audit isn't an evaluation, but in many ways, there's some, it feels like it. Uh, and how it really is an opportunity to avoid
Right.
difficulties or avoid problems that are definitely more difficult to manage than to just make sure that there's small corrections earlier on. So
Right.
I appreciate that. Thank you.
Yeah, well, and the purchasing and contracts one kind of came up because of all the large projects we have going on and coming up. We want to make sure that everything's in place so nothing slips through the cracks with, the Emergency Operations Center and the fire station and Quill, all the big projects. So,
Well, thank you. And that's
Sure.
the role of a city, right?
It
We do
is.
projects.
it is.
Okay. Is there anything else that anyone feels should be added or included in this conversation? All right. Well, thank you. So is there a motion on that one?
No, it's
No,
just
for discussion
discussion.
only.
Yeah, so at the next meeting, we'll bring back the budget with the four items. And then we always have the monitoring of the fraud, waste, and abuse and the follow-up. So she'll bring back a budget and we can approve it at that time. And then I'll take it to the board for their final approval of the 2025 audit program.
Excellent. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay.
Barry, did we want to discuss possibly identifying one of those four engagements to come back in June or the next audit committee with an audit program to move forward? Or should we wait until we have the entire audit program 24-25 approved with the budget?
That is a great point. Typically in June when we meet, we won't meet again till September. So if we're planning on for sure doing these four projects, we'll have maybe Audrey come back with the human resources audit program in June so that she can hit the ground running in July.
Is everyone comfortable with that?
I concur.
Okay.
Great. Thank
Yeah.
you.
I would rather do that human resources one earlier rather than later with the comp study and everything else going on. So
Perfect.
Yeah.
They seem to be aligning well.
hopefully.
Thank you. All right. Now we have 5D for discussion only. Discussion regarding fiscal year 2024 audit work program update and hotline activity.
This one's Audrey.
Audrey,
Audrey again. We'll turn it
Take it
over.
away. Thank you.
Thank you. We are marching along. So as you can see on the slide provided, the cash handling internal audit was completed today, March 26th. The clerk recorder information technology internal audit was completed and delivered to the audit committee on January 9th of 2024. The accounts payable and P-card or purchasing card transactions internal audit is in progress. We are wrapping up field work and starting to draft the report, and that will be delivered at the next audit committee, which we are anticipating June of 2024. Same with the DevNet system for the assessor's office internal audit. We are in the middle of field work with that and been meeting with the treasurer and the assessor's office to assess those application controls. And we anticipate delivering that at June 2024. And then the FY 24-25 risk assessment that we just discussed is in progress, and we are developing the draft report, and that will be delivered June of 2024. We can also add there the audit program for the HR workforce management will be delivered June 2024. And the update on the fraud, waste, and abuse hotline that has been reviewed and tested. There were no items related to the city, and we have tested that like we do on an annual basis, and that came back conclusive, ensuring that that does operate effectively. And there was some reports that I was able to pull down from the system to get some trending and analysis. And the city really doesn't have much. There was one year that there was maybe 2 or 3 items that didn't really result in anything. But aside from that, there isn't a lot of activity. And I was curious to know, benchmarking around other municipalities that are with the same vendor that manages the fraud, waste, and abuse hotline. And on average, there are 10 legitimate or reports that are related to that municipality for every 1,000 employees. And Carson City has 0.4 reports for every 1,000 employees, which I thought was right in alignment with where we're at right now. But they, we don't see a lot of activity, which I'm glad that Sherry and her team publicize and update on an annual basis and remind people that hotline is out there and that it is working. So that's good to report. And then the last item on here, follow-up, that has been updated, and we have the 2 that Sherry mentioned before, finding 8 on utility billing and finding 4 on clerk's office. And then we will continue to work with her to close out other items that need to be validated. And that is the follow-up activity, and we are on track, on budget, and on time with our audit program.
Perfect.
And that concludes the update. Thank you.
Great news. Thank you. And was there any other discussion on that? Okay. Then item 5E for discussion only, discussion regarding dates for the next meeting of the audit committee. And so we're looking at June.
We are. And I'm good any day in June. Tuesdays at 1:30 is usually our sweet spot for the audit committee, so we want to do the 11th or the 18th.
How does the 18th look for everyone?
18th? Okay, you got it.
Great. Okay, our next meeting will be June 18th at 1:30. So item 6, public comment. The public is invited at this time to comment on any matter that is not specifically included on the agenda as an action item. Is there any public comment? All right, then we can go ahead and adjourn. Thank you, everyone.